and tell you about that, where that will be located. So we just wanted to give you a little overview of all this information, and so that's our plan for tonight. As far as our agenda, really we're looking at about an hour, maybe a little over an hour of just some information about AP and dual enrollment. And like I said, this is just a starting point for both programs. We're going to direct you to a lot of information that you can really dive deeper into all the options that we offer at ParkView and options that are at some of the colleges in the area. One of the first things that we kind of like to talk about here, and I think that's why a lot of you are here, is what can a student do to earn an edge in college admissions? And I have a background of being an English teacher, and I taught seniors for years. So I always work with them through the college process. And there's really two things that go into the college admission process, and looking for what it is that students need to do to really prepare for that and to shine when they're applying to college. You know, our push and the push for everyone right now is that everyone goes to college. Everyone pursues some kind of post-secondary option. And in doing so, you really have to make yourself shine now. And I think a lot of students feel a lot of pressure and stress to shine. And that's through taking a lot of courses, but it's also through trying to make yourself stand out from everyone else. So building a good academic record is really what you need to do as a primary thing for college. You need to make sure that you are making high grades in all of your classes. You also need to make sure that you're pursuing competitive courses. A lot of times people will take AP courses at ParkView and start to struggle. They might make a B when in the past they were making A's, and so they want to pull out of those courses. But colleges are not only looking for A's, they're also looking to see that you're taking the most challenging curriculum that's offered at the school. And so it really depends on which type of university that you're applying to. Whether it's an Ivy League school, state school, a regional state school, a local community college. You know, there's a lot of different avenues of what it is that really you need to do to prepare for that, and making sure you have a good balance here of making good grades, but also knowing that if you're applying to a competitive college, they want to see that you are taking the most challenging curriculum that your school offers, which in many cases would be AP. So as we begin this presentation and continue on, I think you'll start to realize that there might be some students who would benefit from the dual enrollment option, and there might be some who will not. And the same is true for AP courses. I think there are some types of students who would benefit from AP courses and some who would not. And so our goal is just to kind of help you through that process and making the right decision. So how can a student earn an edge on college admissions? Well, you have to be a serious student. You have to get good grades and demanding courses, as we said, and that extra little something. Do something that demonstrates leadership, creativity, and initiative. I think so many times a lot of our students who are in AP lose track of that second option, which is making yourself stand out from everyone else. There will be a lot of kids who've taken a lot of AP courses applying to college. How will you stand out? And that might be through things that you do through your community. That might be extracurricular activities that you participate in. That could be a number of different things, but it can also be things that you do at school that demonstrate that leadership and initiative that really make you stand out as a student. So finding your niche and finding what really makes you unique is very important as you start to get closer and closer to applying to college. AP and dual enrollment both provide college credit, or at least the opportunity for college credit. AP college credit comes from not necessarily taking the course, but for taking the exam at the end of the course. Students who earn, in most cases, a 3 or above would be eligible for some college credit at different colleges throughout the United States. And so when you get to, and we'll talk about that in a minute, when you get into the details of which colleges accept which credits, or what do some colleges require as far as a score, that's going to vary from college to college. And so I can't give you a one definitive, oh, you got a 3 on this AP exam, now you don't have to take this course. But in a minute, I'll show you a little bit more information about how you can find out and start looking at the colleges that your student's thinking about attending, and look and see what AP exams they accept and what cutoff scores they have to get credit for certain courses. So it's about taking the AP course, and that's great for college admissions, but for college credit, it's really about that AP exam that happens at the end. So advanced placement, what is it in general? And in general, it is college level coursework. These are challenging courses, and the teachers who teach these courses have been specially trained to be able to present coursework that meets the requirements for what would be considered a college level course. So students will, if they get what their college deems as a passing score on those AP exams at the end, can receive college credit. The good news about that is that AP exams cost $95, which is a lot cheaper than what most college classes would cost. So this is a very beneficial program for students who can participate and do well on those exams. It's excellent college preparation, and it develops really the habits of mind that are necessary for what you're going to experience when you go to college. It's taught by teachers, as I said, that have specialized training. They go to a very long summer institute where they learn from master teachers who really walk them through the process of how to deliver this course content and challenge our students. And so this is a great opportunity for kids who want to go ahead and start their college experience a little bit early. And I've never had any student who's gone through a lot of our AP courses here at Parkview go to college and say that they didn't feel well prepared for college. These students are really getting the preparation they need by taking these AP courses. What are some benefits? Why take AP? Well, as we said, the college admissions process, the rigor of the schedule is an important part of that. College transition, AP courses are an introduction to the rigors that you're going to have in college coursework. And so, a lot of students struggle to graduate in 4 years when they go to college. Students who take AP courses are more likely to finish college in 4 years than traditional students who don't. And also college success. Students who take AP courses tend to be more successful overall than the students who don't. So it's a great thing overall for admissions and transition and success. So how do they affect Hope GPA? One of the things that you may or may not know about AP classes at the end, as far as how grades are calculated in Gwinnett, what students will receive, they receive 10 extra points added to their grade. So if a student ends an AP course with an 85, that will become a 95 on their transcript. So this is for GCPS. It's not the same necessarily for Hope Scholarship calculation. Those 10 points do get removed when they calculate the Hope Scholarship, but Hope will add 0.5 to their GPA when they're calculated out of the 4.0 scale to give you a little something, since it is an AP course. So again, when you see that grade on the transcript, I know, and students here always want to get the natural A, which is going to equate to 103, 104, 105. But I would encourage you, when your student takes an AP course, especially for the first time, you might notice that they earn maybe lower than a natural A. They might earn a lower grade than they've ever earned in a class, because this is challenging coursework. So if they have a 75 in the course and you're starting to get a little stressed, just know that on their transcript, that 75 during the course will equal an 85 ultimately on their final transcript. So they do get those 10 points added, although all of our AP students will tell you that those 10 points don't matter. They want the natural A. But I'm telling you that balance the rigor versus the success, because you do want to take the most challenging class, even if that does raise your grade, lower your grade by, a lettered grade than what you would naturally get in an honors level class. It's probably worth it to show that you are taking the most rigorous curriculum available. This is exactly what I was talking about, in that students who take the number of exams they take has a great impact on how quick they can graduate from college, or generally graduate from college. 29% of students who have not taken any AP courses generally graduate from college in 4 years. And that's not a great statistic. You can look at all of these statistics for the colleges that your student are considering, and get a better idea of how this might play out for your student. But as you can see, just taking one AP course can increase your students' chances of graduating to up to 45%, and 2 or more courses, 61% of those students who take those courses in high school end up graduating in 4 years. So it's a great program, even if students don't take the AP exams or don't pass the AP exams. If you feel like your student is up to the challenge and is ready to commit to a more rigorous coursework, it is great preparation for college and could save you a lot of money in that you won't be in college for 5 or 6 years. How many AP courses can a student take per year? Well, that really depends on the student. We have some students who take one, and a lot of those are ninth graders who are just starting out. And we have some students who take AP courses pretty much for their entire day. So most AP courses are restricted in the early grades. So when we're talking about ninth graders, as you can see on this slide, most ninth graders are only eligible to take AP Human Geography, which is their social studies class for ninth grade. And after that point, that's a great course for students who have done well, who've made A's in their social studies classes and language arts classes, because all AP classes are really a lot of writing too. But if you feel like if you feel like AP might be a good choice for your student and you have a rising ninth grader next year, AP Human Geography is a great place to start because it lets you sample the waters. You're taking the most challenging curriculum, but if things don't go well in that course, you'll know before you start piling on a lot more courses, because as our students enter 11th and 12th grade, they tend to end up taking a whole lot more AP courses. So 10th graders usually only take AP World History, another great year to continue on and test the waters a little bit to see how your student's doing in those classes. Sometimes students in the 10th grade might be qualify for a science or math AP course, just depending on their course sequence, depending on where they are in their math course sequence right now. And so as far as how do you register for AP exams, I'm going to talk in a minute about our course registration process and what that's going to look like this year. If you have a student right now at Parkview, next week they're going to start those conversations with their teachers about the course registration process and what classes they would like to take. So a lot of those students who are already in an AP course or maybe in a gifted or honors course and are doing well and demonstrating that they're ready for this content, their teachers might already recommend them for an AP course if the student is interested in pursuing that. If the teachers do not recommend the student for your student for an AP course, then there will be a process for you to be able to do that, and what we call the schedule verification process in February. But like I said, I would consider very strongly the teacher's recommendation, because they see a lot of students who go through their classes and kind of know what the expectations are for the AP course that might be coming up next year for that subject area. So I would, in most cases, defer to the teacher's judgment unless your student just changes their mind or convinces you that they're willing to take the risk and you're willing to accept the risk of them signing up for one of those courses. Just know that once they make that commitment for AP, we can't continue to make schedule changes after that verification process that this year is going to take place a little earlier in February. So very important that students really know what they're making a commitment for, and that if you do an override where you say that you'd like to request a change and have that placed in your student schedule for next year, that just make sure that those students are very well aware of what they're committing to. These are currently our course offerings for AP. I'm going to, as I said, provide a recording for this PowerPoint. We're going to provide this for you. And we're also going to direct you to a place where you can find some more information, including videos from some of our AP teachers and some course descriptions, so that you have a really good idea of what these courses are all about. I know it's just kind of, you see a whole screen here full of classes and it doesn't mean a whole lot, but as far as the grade levels that go next to them, those are the grade levels where those classes are usually taken. But there will be a lot more information on the course registration hub that I'm going to share with you in just a few minutes, where you'll be able to access all of this information at any point, and that'll really give you, I think this year, a great tool. Since we're not able to have students in the building and talk with them and work them through all the courses, we really wanted to provide a resource for you. So the only major differences for next year as far as what we're planning, and again, this is all pending enrollment and enough students indicating interest, but we are going to add AP European History as an option to our social studies AP courses. So everything else, as you can see, in foreign language, we do offer an AP level course for all of those foreign languages. That would be generally at your senior or perhaps junior level in foreign language, depending on whether or not you want to stick with a foreign language and get to that point. We do have a lot of students who take those AP courses. We have a lot of options in language arts. We have AP Seminar and Research, which is part of our AP Capstone. I'll talk about that in a minute. AP Language and AP Lit are 12th grade options. A lot of students, if you really like literature and you like reading, Lit is your option over Lang. Math, we have AP Calculus, AB, BC, and AP Statistics. And a lot of options for social studies, as you can see. You can see those 9th and 10th grade options of AP World or AP Human and AP World. And then as you get into 11th and 12th grade, as you can see, that's where our seniors and juniors start really expanding out their AP options. Under science, many options here as well. And really your current science teacher is the best place to go to ask questions about where might be a good placement for you for next year if you're currently in a chemistry class, for example, or if you're already in an AP course. So I would direct you there. And then we also have some other areas such as our AP Studio art program. If you're really into art, we have a great AP program there for drawing, 2D and 3D design. And then we also offer an AP Computer Science A course. Not the computer science principles, but computer science A. So just a little bit of information there. Like I said, I'm going to point you to a website that's going to give you a lot more information with details about all these courses. So as far as before registering for AP courses, again, remember that there is that rigor, and this is a challenging course load that kids are going to be pursuing. So make sure you're thinking about the overall course load, the academic demands of what's being asked of your student, extracurricular athletic participation. So many students get into 11th and 12th grade and overextend themselves. I don't know how you know or how you know that that's going to happen before it happens, but I do think that it's a good thing right now to start having those conversations with your student, especially if a rising junior or senior next year, to just really have the conversation of what's the balance that I want to have with my social life and my overall well-being. A lot of students go through a lot of stress and anxiety with their AP courses. And like I said, it is very hard to make any kind of adjustments the longer we go. And we just don't make adjustments after we set our schedule. So that February point is when we need to know what students are going to take, because that's when we hire our teachers and build our master schedule based on what students want to take. So if we start allowing all of these course changes, it makes it impossible for us to offer the courses that students want to take. And so that's why we just want you to have that conversation early with your student. One of the things that, and again, this video is, I'm not going to play it for you here, but there's a video that goes over our AP Capstone program. If you recall at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about how it was important for you to stand out to colleges and be unique. This is the program for students who are pursuing Ivy League schools who really want to stand out to their university. And it is an application-only course. The application is still open, and I'll show you where the application is located if you have a student who might be interested in this program. And basically what it is a 2-year commitment course. This would only be applicable to a current 10th grader who is a rising junior. And once you miss that boat, you've missed the boat, because you have to take both of these courses to get what's called the AP Capstone Diploma. So first year you would take what's called AP Seminar, and that is paired at the same time with your language arts course. So in essence, you would get credit for both AP Seminar and your junior level language arts course during the same period. So you get an extra class in essence in your schedule, but they're taught at the same time because the curriculum is connected. And so once you take that course, really what this is an opportunity for you to develop research and presentation skills, to identify an area of interest that you would like to study and pursue that area of interest through a 2-year program. And so this is great for students who have very unique interests, but have not really found a course at Parkview that meets that requirement, or maybe didn't go quite far enough and they want to pursue a special interest that we don't have a class that supports them. Well, this is where they can go well above and beyond that. And so AP Seminar would be their junior level class, AP Research would be their senior level class. And if they earn a 3 or above on those exams at the end of each of those courses and take 4 other AP exams while at Parkview, they will get something that's called the AP Capstone Diploma. That AP Capstone Diploma is just a little bit of an extra thing that the College Board provides that is great resume material for students, like I said, who are pursuing very prestigious schools. So again, this is not something that you absolutely have to do. It is one of the avenues that a student who might be pursuing an Ivy League school or a very selective university might do to demonstrate leadership or a little bit unique flair. So again, application is required for this. And to apply, I'll show you that website in just a minute that will give you a breakdown of how to do that. But I always like to talk about this during this session because I know that's what a lot of parents who attend this are looking for, is that class to get a little college credit, but also how to shine to the colleges. And this is one of those programs that definitely would help you do that. So AP exams at the end, I've talked a little bit about that. AP exams are not automatic. The main testing takes place during first semester for our year-long and first semester AP courses. So if you are currently in an AP course that's year-long, I hope you've already registered because the deadline was last semester. But do keep that in mind. They do make you commit earlier now, and that's not us, that's College Board. They have done a lot of research that says if they can get kids to commit to taking the exam, then they do better on the exam and they do better in the class because they know that they're committed. They're already taking the exam, and so there's no longer a choice that they're making all the way up to, you know, what used to be an April decision is now a very early, you know, September, October, November decision. AP exams are done, registration is completed through My Payments Plus. If students are in second semester only courses, in other words, they're taking a new AP course this semester, and those are usually social studies courses, and then a few, maybe one science course like Physics C, Micro, Macro, those 1 semester courses. If they have a new AP teacher this year and a new AP course this year, they can still register for those through My Payments Plus right now through March 5th. So there is a little bit of a window for just those second semester only courses. But if you're thinking about course AP exams for next year, that registration for those courses takes place next year. This is only for students who are sitting in AP courses today. And so $95 is the cost for the exam. So very cost efficient when you're thinking about taking away an entire course for college. There's also a $10 registration fee that goes onto that. You pay that one time. If you qualify for the free and reduced lunch program, Gwinnett County does pay for all of your exams. If you are not a part of that program, they'll only pay for one exam, but you do get a free exam. So for example, 9th graders who are taking AP Human, they're only paying $10 to take that one exam. Gwinnett County will pay for their AP exam, regardless of their free and reduced lunch status. Just to give you an overview of what our scores looked like, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but 918 students took a total of 1,712 AP exams, and 76% scored a 3 or higher on at least one. And so to me, that's great. So 76% of our students who took an AP course last year went on and could have used that for college credit somewhere. And so you can see kind of an overview of how our scores were And again, we have a lot of students who do very well. A lot of schools do require higher than 3. So that's where you get the 4s and the 5s there, where students are trying to really excel to get some college credit. One place you can go, if you Google AP credit search policy, and you can just go to Google and that'll be the first result that will show up for you, AP credit search policy. This is where you could find what it is that the colleges that your students are thinking about going to. For University of Georgia, for example, you could look up that specific school's requirements for what AP exams they accept and what their cutoff scores are for those exams. So this is a great, instead of trying to go to every single university website, one-stop shop, stop here, look at the credit, look up your college, and you can see everything that you need to know for that college or multiple colleges very quickly. The last thing I'm going to share with you before I send it over to Ms. Sela, who's going to talk about dual enrollment, which I know a lot of you are interested in, is our course registration hub. And this is going to be a great resource for a lot of the questions that might come up about different AP courses. How many can I take? When can I take this? How do I take this? What if I don't get signed up for it? What do I do? Well, this website, if we go to PartView, which is our main home page here, you just get here and I will show you what to do. So if you're going to the PartView website, I know hopefully most of you have been here at one point before, but we have a new banner here that's under all the pictures on our main if you go to partview.net, you'll end up at our PartView website, this course registration information. This is a new website that we built this year that pretty much gives you an overview of the entire registration process. There's a video at the top that gives you an overview, and there's really 2 landing pages here. This is for our current PartView students. So if you have a student at PartView right now, this would be a video that gives you kind of an overview of the entire registration process this year and what that will look like. If you have a rising 9th grader, every bit of information is going to be in this second link on the menu, which is the rising 9th grade course registration. So that'll include everything you need to know. But just to give you an idea, I have some very specific site shortcuts. There's a timeline here that tells you exactly what you and or your student can be doing. There's an application only link right here on the timeline, and that's where if you had any interest in that AP Capstone, if you have a current sophomore, a rising junior for next year who might want to apply to that, or to a lot of the specialty electives like newspaper, yearbook, seniors who want to be an office aide, things like that would require an application. So this link will take you to a list of all of those applications where you can apply for those courses. But this is just an overview of the entire registration process. Most of the registration process, if you watch the video up the top, Ms. Walk will tell you the same information, who's our curriculum AP, but most of the registration process will be going on behind the scenes with your student. The opportunity for you to review what courses your student has been registered for by teachers at PartView and recommended for will be in this February 18th to February 24th window. You'll be able to access a list of all of the courses that your student has been recommended for on the parent portal and student portals. So that will be a great resource for you to be able to do that. So I wanted to talk about this website now though, so you could start looking at it, seeing what questions you might want to ask your child's current teachers, and really put you in connection with some resources to where you can research all of the courses that we offer here. As I said, if you have a rising 9th grader for next year, the Tricum teachers in 8th grade will be pushing out information to you about this website, which includes a lot of frequently asked questions, a separate timeline for 9th grade, some information about core classes from all of our core area 9th grade teachers or department chairs, information about health and PE, your foreign language options with a little video from each of our different programs from foreign language, and then all of our electives that we offer at Parkview. So this is just a great resource with videos from different programs to really help you make an educated decision about what it is that you want for your student next year. If you have a current student at Parkview, and you're looking for core class information, we have that information here on the next link down with language arts. You'll just need to find what your student will be taking. For example, if you have a 9th grader who's moving into 10th grade, you'd want to look at the sophomore videos for math and language arts, science, and social studies to just give you an overview of what to expect and what are the different levels. And then the last thing I'm going to show you here, our last 2 links would be our AP courses, which is what I was talking about earlier, that lists every AP course that we offer. This is where you'd find that AP Capstone video if you're interested in that program. But this lists all of our AP courses, and it also includes a video from the teachers of those courses giving you a little overview of what the course is about. And so hopefully this will help you. I've also included some prerequisites so that you know when your student would be able to take that course. But always, always the best source for information about next year's AP options would be your child's current teacher in that area. And if you don't have anyone that really fits that bill and you're looking for a different course, then you're free to email me and I can put you in touch with the right person who can answer your specific questions about AP courses. The last thing I'll point you out to before I'll turn it over to Ms. Salo to talk about dual enrollment is our elective course offerings, which we have a page here that is pretty much like the AP course, but this lists all of the PartView specific course offerings, elective course offerings with the prerequisites for each of those and an overview video as well. So I hope that this information makes things a little more transparent for parents, gives you some more information, and helps your student make a better decision for courses for next year, so that we all are happy with where we end up with next year when we complete that course registration process. So like I said, my name is Doug Nichols, and Lee Walk, as I said, is our curriculum AP. I assist her in the curriculum office. We work together with issues related to AP and curriculum and courses at Parkview. Miss Salo and Miss Wilkinson are our counselors, and they are in charge of dual enrollment. And so at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to Miss Salo, who's going to share some information with you about dual enrollment for students and tell you who might be a good fit for that program. So again, thank you for your attention, and I'm now going to pass the torch over to Miss Salo.
Okay. Hi guys, good evening. I'm Miss Salo, Kim Salo. I'm one of the dual enrollment coordinators. I am a school counselor here, and I'm just getting the slideshow ready. Sure. Okay. Okay, you should all be able to see that now. So like Mr. Nichols was saying, him and I are messengers for these programs. So he's the messenger for AP, and me and Miss Wilkinson are the messengers for dual enrollment classes. We don't think one is better than the other. Both have pluses and minuses. So we're purely just the ones to give y'all this information. So for dual enrollment, basically what the goal for dual enrollment is to increase college access and completion and to prepare students to enter the workforce with skills that they need to succeed. Dual enrollment is basically where a high school student will take a college class and they earn both high school credit and college credit. So which students are eligible to participate in the dual enrollment program? So this would include any student who attends a public high school, which all of your students probably do, or any eligible home study programs in Georgia, students who meet the admissions requirements for the schools they're choosing to try to go to as a dual enrollment student, and students who make satisfactory academic progress towards their high school graduation. So they're continuing to do well in their classes. So I'm not sure if y'all are aware, but the laws have changed in Georgia for dual enrollment, and this change happened pretty late last school year, so last spring. So these are some changes from before. So if you are a parent that had your other students do this, or you're a student and you had some older siblings do it, the program has changed, okay? So no longer are students 9th through 12th grade eligible. It's now different. So if you are a rising 9th grader you are not going to be eligible for this program. Ninth graders are no longer eligible to participate in dual enrollment. If you are a rising 10th grader, you could possibly participate. There are some restrictions though. So if a student is in 10th grade and they want to participate in dual enrollment, they have to make a minimum SAT score of a 1200 or a minimum ACT score of 26. And this is in a single testing date, so one testing administration. And they can take any classes listed on the course directory, so any approved courses. They can take these classes at technical colleges, USG institutions, which are public colleges, or any private college. Or a 10th grade student could also take classes at technical colleges in the career technical and agricultural education courses. So it's one of two options. So either you're a 10th grade student who didn't meet those test scores, so you could take classes at dual enrollment, but it'd have to be at a technical school, and it would have to be one of the approved career technical agricultural and education. We call it CTAE, so you may hear me say that later. Or if you're a 10th grader who did really well on those tests, then you could participate at any school just like the older students could. So that's kind of a little bit of a change. I know it might be a little confusing, so feel free to follow up with us. Or if you're a rising 11th or 12th grader, you can participate in dual enrollment now, like you always have been able to. And you can take any class through that Georgia Futures course directory at those eligible post-secondary institutions. And that information is listed on the gafutures.org website. So which courses are available for students to take at college? So they're in any of the core areas. So if you go to georgiafutures.org and you look at the course directory, which we have a link later to kind of show you where that's located, they have classes in the English area, math, science, social studies, foreign language, fine arts, and in that CTAE section as well. Not all classes are available at all institutions. So now when you search the classes on the course directory, you can search by college and it has the different categories there too. And another new thing that was new with the law is students are now only allowed a maximum of 30 credit hours. So that's total to be funded. And that's your entire time while you participate in dual enrollment. So if you may be a student that starts in 10th grade, you only get 30 credit hours between 10th and 12th grade. Or if you're a student that goes in 11th grade and 12th grade, you only get 30 credit hours total. So your total time that you participate. So that's another restriction with the law. Like years ago, we would have students that would be full-time in 11th and 12th grade, full-time taking all their classes at college. And that's just not something that's going to be an option to get funded anymore. So that is a big change from previous years. You do get only a maximum of 30 credit hours total to be funded. Okay, so grading works a little bit different in college. When students attend college classes, they actually earn a letter grade. So whereas you might be in that class and you see like, oh, I got a 96. Well, what's going to be on your transcript is a letter grade from college. But on Gwinnett County, we give you a numerical grade and we have to transcribe letter grades in the midpoint. So if you get an A, you would get a 95. If you get a B, you would get an 85. If you get a C, you would get a 77. If you get a D, you would get a 72. And if you fail a class, you would get a 55. And we do have to put any grade on the transcript. And we have unfortunately had some students that have failed classes, and that 55 does go on your transcript. We want to make sure y'all are aware that this could affect your class rank. So if you get an A in a college class, you're getting a 95. You're not getting that extra 10 points. And then college classes, they're typically 3 credit hours per class. That's how college does that. And that would be equal to 1 full credit on the high school transcript. So a year's worth of high school credit. And that would be if you took a 3 credit hour class, 4 credit hour, or 5 credit hour class. If a student took a 1 or a 2 credit hour class, they would only get half a credit on a high school transcript. So that's just like 1 semester of that's the equivalent to 1 semester of a high school class. But if you take a semester of a 3 credit hour class in college, you get a full year's credit. So a full credit on the high school transcript. And as I kind of mentioned, additional points are not added to the college grad. So this is a difference from AP classes. But you do still get that half a point GPA boost for DE courses in the HOPE GPA. So say you take a college class and you get a B, instead of that 3 quality points, you get a 3.5. So you do get that 0.5 on there. And like I mentioned, all classes that a student takes in college do have to go on the high school transcript. And this is just something that's kind of picky. If a student takes a science lab class, at college, the grade goes on the transcript, but they don't receive any credit for that. That's just a weird, ticky thing. It's not us or Parkview, it's, the county and state. That's how they do that. All dual enrollment classes are included on the high school transcript. If a student fails a class in college, it could jeopardize graduation. And students must continue to make adequate academic progress each semester to be allowed to continue in the dual enrollment program. So that means they have to continue to be passing their classes. So we really want y'all to think clearly if this is what you want to do, because when you start your college classes, that starts your college transcript, and it goes on both your college transcript and your high school transcript. Okay, so a good benefit for dual enrollment is, what is the cost? It's mostly free. So tuition, your cost of class, that's free. Mandatory fees, that's free. Books, that's free. That's all funded by the state of Georgia. Now, there are a few little fees that you may have to pay, like the application fee to apply to the college. You do have to pay for that. Occasionally, there is a fee associated with a class, like a lab class, that you may have to pay, but mostly you're getting a pretty good deal. Those classes are mostly free. Okay. So these are some benefits of participating in dual enrollment. You could save, hundreds of dollars in college tuition because the state's paying for it while you're a high school student. You could earn college credits while you are in high school, which means you would have the potential to possibly graduate high school or college early. Typically, students that participate in dual enrollment, they do have a better adjustment to certain aspects of the college experience, and they're more likely to enroll in college after high school and graduate with their class. And students do have the opportunity to be a full-time dual enrollment student. That's where they're still a Parkview student, but they're taking all their classes at college. Or they could be a part-time student, and that's where they take some of their classes at college and some of their classes at Parkview. Now, if the student wants to be a part-time student, so taking some at college and some at high school, they have to take at least 5 combo. So that could be a 1 and 4 combo or a 3 and 2 combo. So you would take 2 at high school and 3 in college, or vice versa, or 1 and 4. And in order to be full-time at college, so taking all your classes at college, you'd have to take at least 4 or 5 college classes, and that equates to about between 12 to 15 credit hours, semester hours. And another benefit is you could take classes that just aren't available in the high school. Other benefits are you would have a flexible schedule. So college classes work a little bit differently. They typically are not every day of the week. They're usually Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, or Tuesday, Thursdays. Sometimes there's a Monday, Wednesday class. Occasionally they're 1 day a week. The student gets to pick their schedule, so they get to pick what they want to take as long as it's funded. They can take that, and they can kind of match up their schedules. So say you're a full-time dual enrollment student, you're not a morning person, you can start your day at 10 o'clock, and that's fine, as long as you're taking the correct number of hours. Grades are calculated in the HOPE GPA. You could earn that additional half a point towards the HOPE GPA. There is no residency or citizenship requirement to participate in dual enrollment, and courses that you take will not count against that hourly cap for the HOPE scholarship or the HOPE grant, which is pretty nice. Courses that you earn a grade of a C or above should transfer to most other colleges, but you always want to check with the college you're thinking of going to. And attendance, you could take classes in the fall, in the spring, or in the summer. I do want to say summer, that subject did change. The lawmakers are continuing to meet, and we didn't find out till late last year when they made that change, so just kind of stay up to date with that. And we will share that information with students should we find any of that out. But currently, students can take classes in the fall and the spring, and possibly the summer. And students can still be active at Parkview. They can still participate in extracurriculars and social activities. We have a lot of our full-time dual enrollment students. They'll be like, can I still do my sports? We're like, yeah, you can still participate in sports, clubs, anything you want to do. You're still welcome to be at Parkview and participate in those kind of activities, whether it's for junior year or senior year activities, you can still participate in that. So this is super important. The traits of a successful student who participates in dual enrollment. We always want to make sure that we give this information out to you all, because dual enrollment and AP, it's not for everybody. But some traits for successful students that participate in this program, you do need to understand that good communication is very important. okay? And that includes making sure you're checking your emails regularly. That will be both high school and the college email, and you need to respond. So, and your student needs to be the one that is communicating this information. So if your student has a question, if they need to seek clarity, or if they need help, they need to be really good at asking for that help or asking for that clarification. Because a lot of the times, the students that are most successful are the students that are already educated about the dual enrollment program. They're the ones that are seeking out that information, registering, looking at the college. We really do appreciate parent involvement and parents being supportive, but we do want the student to be the one, because they're the one actually taking the classes. So we want to make sure they're kind of, in the realm of making that happen. And students that are successful, they can work independently, follow directions. They need to understand that parents and the high school counselor cannot communicate with dual enrollment professors. So college professors will not talk to us, and they will not talk to parents or guardians. They only talk to the student. And the student needs to be really good at submitting all required documents and following deadlines. So they need to be really good at staying on top of things. Okay, so these are kind of the policies and procedures for participating in dual enrollment. So step one, attending the meeting, which all of you have, good job. And then make sure that you're checking the counseling website for all required dual enrollment information. So don't check it right now, we gotta update it. So as soon as this presentation's over, tomorrow or next Monday or Tuesday, we should have this video up on the website, and we will have all the required paperwork. We wanted to make sure you guys attended the meeting, but we're going to put all that required paperwork, and that's going to include step-by-step policies and procedures. All the information that we need is going to be on the website pretty soon. So by the beginning of next week, it should be up there. The students need to talk to their assigned counselor to discuss graduation requirements. They also need to talk to their assigned counselor about what classes to take, because that's a lot of times intertwined. So make sure you see your assigned counselor, students. And make sure you read all of the instructions and you complete all the PartView dual enrollment paperwork. So whenever you are trying to participate, you apply to the college, you complete a gafutures.org application, and you turn in the required paperwork to me and Ms. Wilkinson. And this is due for PartView by April 1st. Now, college deadlines might be later, so they may be like May 1st, typically is when they are, but you do have to turn in paperwork to us. But you can still be completing that college application, but all of our paperwork, we do need to have that by April 1st. And a lot of colleges do require that students take the SAT, the ACT, or the AccuPlacer, and they typically want these taken before college admission deadline. However, due to COVID, a lot of colleges have waived this requirement, so it's up to the student to kind of check and see if that's something that's required. So if you're trying to go to Georgia State and they still require the SAT or ACT, then you need to make sure you take it. I think Georgia State may have waived it. I'm just using them as an example, but just make sure you're checking that. And a quick way that I like to search things is I like to say Georgia State dual enrollment, or Georgia Gwinnett College dual enrollment, or Gwinnett Tech dual enrollment. And then that kind of takes me direct to their website, because their websites have a lot of info on there, and I like to just kind of get straight to it. So that's how I search it. And then students do need to complete a dual enrollment application. Also, it's called like the funding application on gafutures.org. Okay, so they apply to the college, they fill out our paperwork, and they fill out an application through gafutures.org. It includes the funding application. And another new thing that happened is parents and guardians must electronically approve and sign off that they approve their student to participate. So when your student creates the gafutures.org application, they're going to put the email you want them to send it to, and then that you're going to get sent like a sign-off sheet saying you approve your student to participate. And it's really important that that gets turned in a timely manner. That is a new thing from years prior. And then I mentioned you have to apply to and gain acceptance to the college and university, and the student is responsible for following the college application procedures and meeting all the deadlines. And part-time students, so if a student wants to take some classes at Parkview and some classes at college, they do need to realize that they're going to have to build their college classes around their Parkview schedule, and classes are not guaranteed. It's really important that they're flexible. And just know that students do have to provide their own transportation to college. We're not able to provide transportation to the colleges, so the students are going to have to provide their own transportation. And we just wanted to make sure we mentioned again, all paperwork is due to me and Ms. Wilkinson by April 1st. Now, if you're a digital student, if your student is attending digitally, they can email us that form, or if your student's face-to-face, they can drop that by the counseling office if they want to. And like you mentioned, it's due April 1st, but you can still apply to the college after that and take the SAT, ACT. Now, we will have a summer meeting for dual enrollment students that have already been accepted and sent us their schedule. We will have that summer meeting. We are going to mail home a letter. So if you do decide to participate, we'll have your name, because we're going to have some follow-up sessions, and we're going to mail home a letter. Okay, so these are the next SAT test dates and the next ACT test dates. As you can see, you have to register about a month before. And we kind of made a note, like, if you're trying to go to a college that does still require this, because like I said, a lot of them have waived it, but if they do still require it, you're going to want to take that exam in either March or May, or the ACT in April, because if you take it after those dates, because like I said, their college deadlines are usually May 1st, so they really want those scores in before that. Okay. I just like to check my notes. So what do you do after you're accepted to the college? So you're a student, you've applied to the college, you completed your gafutures.org account. What do you do next? You inform Ms. Wilkinson and Ms. Salos, and me and Ms. Wilkinson, what classes that you plan to take. So part of our paperwork is going to include a PartView advisement form, and that's going to include the college classes that you plan to take. We need to know any course that you're planning to take, because we have to do our part of the funding app, and some colleges require that as part of the application. So like Georgia State is an example. If you take courses there, we have to put those classes in before you can even be accepted. So it's important that you go ahead, well, before you can actually register, sorry. Before you can register for those classes. So make sure you send those to us via the advisement form. That'll be on the website in a couple of days. Then you register for your college classes. Make sure you're following the college procedures for registration. Turn in a copy of your schedule to the dual enrollment coordinators. You must do this each semester. We need to know what you're taking each semester. And then you'll need to complete a PartView schedule change form provided by the curriculum office. This too will be on the website later on. And make sure you stay in touch with the high school, and then provide us with your college grades at the end of each semester, and check your emails. Now, Ms. Wilkinson and I don't email a whole lot, but when we do email you, it's important. So make sure you're checking that. Yep. And then at the end of each semester, you do have to provide an official copy of your college transcript, because college classes, they're going to end before PartView classes do. They usually end at first semesters, like the first or second week in December, and then in May, it's like the first or second week in May in spring semester. So it will end before our classes at PartView end. And dual enrollment students are responsible for completing all high school graduation requirements in order to participate in the graduation ceremony. So again, that's why it's important to meet with your assigned counselor students. And remember, if you plan on transferring your dual enrollment credits to another college, it is the student's responsibility to verify with the college they're planning to go to that they accept dual enrollment credits and they accept transfer credits. And students that are looking to attend a private or out-of-state school, you really need to speak with those colleges to determine what courses are going to be accepted. Okay, so I think there might be a chat in there, so I'm just gonna, well, I guess I can't see that when I'm sharing my screen, so I'll kind of look at that in a minute. So this is what the gafutures.org website looks like. This is going to be where all your information for dual enrollment is from the state. So gafutures.org, and you can see where it says news you can use. Right now, I mean, you could click on shortcuts and there's something for dual enrollment, or you can click trending and you'll see the words dual enrollment. It may say something else after that, but you'll see dual enrollment. And when you click on that, it'll take you directly to the dual enrollment information. So there you can also see who's eligible to participate. You can see the participating colleges and universities, and then you can look at the ever important course directory. So whenever you take courses through dual enrollment, so take these classes at college, you need to take them from a participating college and university. You also have to take classes through the course directory. So that's going to list what classes are funded. If you're trying to take a class and it's not listed on the course directory, it is not going to be funded by the state. Sometimes students will pay for these classes, but like Mr. Nichols was saying earlier, they are very expensive. So typically students will only take courses that are on the funding directory, the course directory. And we're going to have follow-up information sessions for students. Students do need to attend these information sessions. So anybody listening that's a student, we are going to have 2 sessions in February and 2 sessions in March, in which we will go over all the paperwork and we'll be there to answer any of your direct questions. These are really helpful for students to attend these meetings. You only have to attend one, but if you still have questions, you can come to another one. But that way we can kind of answer your specific questions. We can kind of go over the program with you a little bit more. We can show you a couple of examples of the classes that are going to be funded. When you search those courses through that course directory, you can actually, like, you'll click on course directory twice. You have to click on course directory, then course directory again, and you can look at the college, and then you can look at the class. So it'll show you English, math, CTAE classes, all kinds of things. And then I did list the link for our website on there, but basically you'll go to PartView's website and then click counseling and then click dual enrollment. And that's where all the information for dual enrollment will be. If you are interested in dual enrollment, please check this website frequently. It will be updated, should be updated hopefully by the beginning of next week with all the paperwork and the information session dates, but please plan to attend at least one of those. And then I did want to mention also about registration for PartView. So if you are thinking you might be a dual enrollment student next year, please plan your PartView classes like you're not going to participate. So whenever you're picking out your 6 PartView classes, make sure you pick classes that you're not going to participate in. And I just give this example because we had a student a couple years ago, we had a couple students actually that picked some challenging classes because they're like, yeah, I'll pick that, I'll take that. But then they had planned to do dual enrollment and they really didn't want to take that challenge in the class. They were planning to drop it, so they didn't try to request that change, and they had to stay in that class. So that's why I mentioned just plan like you're not going to participate, and then when you do participate, we will make changes to your schedule at that point. That's kind of something we talk about in our info sessions. So just kind of plan your day like you're not going to participate in dual enrollment when you pick those classes, and choose your classes wisely. Okay. So these are kind of some quick, differences between AP and dual enrollment classes. So AP classes are taught at the high school by the AP certified teacher. Dual enrollment classes are taught by college instructors and professors. AP classes, you enroll and you take that in the high school. Dual enrollment classes, you have to be accepted to the college and you take those classes at the college. The demographics for AP students are generally the academically advanced. The demographics for dual enrollment students are also for academically advanced, but it depends on the schools you're going to and what their requirements are. AP classes are recognized nationally by colleges and university, and then that says where dual enrollment classes are recognized. AP classes, on the final transcript, you do get that additional 10 points, so the numerical average is between 0 to 110, whereas if you take a dual enrollment class, your final grade is either going to be those midpoints, so 95, 85, 77, 72, or 55. AP classes, like I just mentioned, you do get that extra 10 points. Dual enrollment classes do not get the extra 10 points. And the Hope Scholarship for AP classes, they minus that 10 points, but they give you that extra 0.5. For dual enrollment classes, they get that extra 0.5, not to exceed 4.0. And then with AP classes, most colleges award credit for students that earn a 3 or higher on the AP exam, and college credit and dual enrollment, that's earned if you make a C or better. So just by taking the class, you could earn the credit if you earn a passing grade of C or better. Okay, so I know that we covered a lot of info and you may have some questions. This is where you go, okay? So like Mr. Nichols showed that really great registration website, you can get there from PartView's homepage. If you have an AP specific question, it's really important to talk to your student's teacher in that subject. So if you're interested in taking AP calculus, talk to the math teacher. If you're interested in AP physics, talk to your science teacher. For dual enrollment courses, you can speak with your student's counselor and also check the counseling website. And you could also, talk to me and Ms. Wilkinson if you're a student, but we are going to have those follow-up information sessions to ask questions. And then remember that students must also attend a mandatory meeting in late July. And because I had a question in the chat and I can't see it when I'm sharing my screen, I'm just going to stop sharing for just a brief moment just to make sure it wasn't for me. Okay. And someone asked, which is a really good question, college classes, they may give you a number grade, so you may get like a 98 final in the class, but what goes on your transcript is an A for college. So that's what we see is the A. We don't see the numerical value. So that would then be a 95. So yes, that's the maximum you would get for an A in a college class.
There was also an AP question that I was going to cover very quickly. Someone asked about AP World Studies, which is really AP World History. What it is we have a special way that we do that course, and it's really a 2-period course, and it's taught in conjunction. The AP World History teacher teaches it with a language arts teacher who's gifted certified. So regardless of if your student was honors or gifted, they could still participate in this course. And what it is, we are asking students to apply. So it's one of those application only courses. So if your student's interested in taking that course in 10th grade, they would need to go on the application only website on the PartView Registration Hub to fill out an application. But basically what it is, it's kind of a larger size class. It's taught down in one of our larger kind of lecture hall style classrooms in the field house. And students get kind of in lectures, yes, but also they do some engaging activities. There's a great video that's on that application only page that will give you some more information about that AP World Studies option. It's totally optional. On your transcript, everything will look exactly the same. There would be no way that you'd even know that you're in the course because it will show up as you being in a language arts class and a world studies class. They're just 2 periods pushed together, and those teachers work together, and you stay in one spot during that time, and they work together to teach that course.
And there's a question about like, when you take dual enrollment classes, they can count towards graduation requirements. So like I'll use math for example. Once a student takes, algebra, geometry, algebra 2, they can take their 4th math in college, and that satisfies that 4th math requirement. Those kind of specific questions we'll kind of address more in those info sessions, because there are college classes you take and they satisfy certain graduation requirements, because that's kind of the goal, to be able to do that. And just double check in the chat, make sure we answer just a couple of them before we sign off for the evening. There's a question about if a student's in 9th grade, should they take the SAT for dual enrollment? So if you are in current 9th grade and you want to take dual enrollment student classes as a 10th grade student, you can take classes at technical schools in that CTAE area. But if you want to take classes outside the CTAE area, so like an academic type of class, or you don't want to take classes at the technical school, you want to take them at the 2-year or 4-year schools or the private schools, then you would have to take the SAT and have a qualifying score to be able to do that. I hope that answered that. And yes, so like if you made a 90 in a college class, what's going to go on your transcript is going to be an A. So that college transcript is going to be an A, and the maximum you could get would be a 95. So it would be a 95. So in essence, like if you make between a 90 and 100 in a college class, it's going to go as an A, and on the high school transcript, we're going to put 95. That's kind of what that is. Yeah, so we'll, when we do our info sessions, we'll kind of talk with students, but all students in high school, they have to have 4 math classes. They have to have algebra, geometry, algebra 2, and then a 4th math. Now we do offer higher level math at PartView, so you can kind of look at that on the website. We do not offer a Foundations of Algebra class. And in college, once they take algebra 2, they give you like a math placement test that kind of places you in the math you would take in college. Okay, I think we answered some things that are in the chat. Mr. Nichols, did you have anything else you wanted to add? We do want to say thank you. Thank you all for logging on. We got a real good number of people here, so I'm very pleased with the turnout. So thank you. Thank you for logging on and getting this information.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And utilize the registration hub, and Look there for a lot of great info. I mean, it's a great way to kind of preview who your teacher might be for an AP class next year and get a feel for it. If you have some hesitancy, I've been getting a lot of private messages I've been responding to about specific AP courses and things like that. So I always encourage you, when you're thinking about an AP course, first, you know, talk to your student, make sure that the commitment's there. And that, you know, second, I would reach out to the teacher of that core area, like Ms. Salo said, and I said earlier in the presentation, and you can just email that teacher and say, you know, what are your thoughts about this? We're thinking about doing this based on the performance in class right now. What do you think, you know, what do you think about this? And so, you know, feel free to reach out to your child's current teacher if you're having any hesitancy about it. Like I said, I'm the AP coordinator. I kind of look over all of the courses, but I don't know specific details about what's taught necessarily in every course. So those content area teachers are going to give you they'll be a better judge of whether or not your student is probably a good fit for certain AP courses.
Yeah. So thank you guys.